what age did you discover you had a passion for strength and conditioning?
Yeah, for me, it sort of started with swimming. I was actually working as a pool lifeguard at a private facility, and there's some really good athletes training there. It was a squad funded by the VIS, the Victoria Institute of Sport, and I was just a casual lifeguard, and just finished my degree at the time. And one of the coaches, Rowan Taylor, who's actually the head coach of the Australian swim team now, was coaching that squad. It had sort of kids from 14, 15 through to open national swimmers who competed obviously at the Olympics and world champs and that sort of thing. So he said to me, would you be interested in coming on board as an S&C coach? We need to replace one. So obviously jumped at the opportunity. I was pretty raw at the time, didn't know too much. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I look back on some of those programs that I wrote early on and scratch my head and shake my head. It's just, as you do as a young strength and conditioning coach, make mistakes and learn from them. And Rowan was really good. He gave me free rein of the squad to sort of implement whatever I wanted to implement.
For those that are not aware of how rehab works, what would that look like? What would be a typical week, and how many athletes would you work with during the week?
I could range from anywhere from, one or two through to, I think at Brisbane Lions we had, 18 or 20 in the rehab group at one stage, which was, it was probably a disaster at the time. But I was probably more involved in the late stage rehab. Andrew Lambart, who was a physio there, and Randall Cooper looked after the early stage stuff. And I was probably more looking after the players that were in that reconditioning mould. So that's sort of, what it looked like back then. And certainly I sort of had a similar sort of role at Brisbane after a couple of years there.
What sort of finals campaigns were you involved in with your time at Hawthorn Brisbane?
So at Hawthorn, I think we got knocked out. So we won the first final, and then it was a really young group at the time, and I don't think too many people sort of expected much success. So we got over the line against Adelaide at Etihad Stadium. Buddy kicked a goal from the boundary. We ended up winning that one. So that was a great experience. First role in an AFL club, and we'd won a final, and then I think we got our pants pulled down the next week against North Melbourne. We were sort of still riding that win, and so that was a really good learning experience for the players, I think. And we took that into the next season and won the premiership in 2008, which again was a fantastic thing to be a part of. Fantastic experience. And then I think we made the finals we missed the finals next year and then made them, but lost week one the year after. And didn't make any finals at Brisbane. So it was sort of two different experiences, I suppose. We had a really young group at Brisbane and we're still developing, and that was a tough environment to be in.
For guys that are in that similar position, are there certain things that you could advise that you do to build that rapport with the players, but also with your team? Getting that connection with your staff?
Yeah, I think first and foremost it's about building trust. So once someone trusts you, then they're more likely to buy in what you're trying to sell. So if you can give them parts of the program where they've got ownership of it, then they're probably going to be much more receptive. Whereas if you keep them at arm's length and say this is the way we're going to do things, and you run a dictatorship, then you're probably going to get a fair bit of pushback. So I think it's building that trust in one another and developing a good relationship where, they've got ownership over parts of the program, and that they can do as they see fit within the framework of what you feel is appropriate. That's probably the best way to go about it, I'd say.
Awesome, mate. Well, we've gone through a fair bit of your career. You've also created a business, Dual Performance. For those that are not aware of what Dual Performance does, do you want to take us through a bit of a snapshot on what you do with the business and when it started?
Yeah, it sort of started around about the same time I went to China, actually. It was just, I wanted to start a little side project. People like Grant Jenkins, talk a lot about, developing those other income streams as an S&C coach. So that's something I wanted to do. And I started putting out blogs and a little bit of information for for strength and conditioning coaches to try and generate some interest in it. But I've sort of expanded, I suppose, at the moment, and we pretty much do online programs. So just regular gym users can sign up and get a strength program. It can be a generic one, or it can be really specific based off their needs. And my wife's a sports physio, so we're looking to sort of expand that side of it and do some telehealth and some other things in that space as well. So it's sort of a little project that's going on in the background, but going really well at the moment.
Yep. And for the young developing footballer or potentially rugby player that's watching and is eager to get better in their athletic development, what would be some big rocks or some major fundamental things to focus on for, let's say, a 15-year-old that needs to get better with their athletic side to help their performance?
Yeah, I think sort of understanding that there's a process that they need to go through. I think everyone wants to go from being a junior athlete to play at the AFL or NRL level really quickly, but they need, I suppose, younger athletes need to understand there is a process. So with that comes setting goals and, making them really clear and achievable. So I might not necessarily, I want to play AFL, but improve your 2K time trial, or I want to squat 120 kilos or whatever it may be. I think having those clear goals and, engage your coaches to do that, engage your S&C coaches, engage your skill coaches to be able to help you in those areas. That's probably the big one for me is set goals and that are clear and achievable, and, work out where you're at and where you need to get to, and then what does the process look like in between.